Hello everyone, this is my case study for Module 10. Okay, so here's a summary of the case. Miguel Hernandez and his family moved to Dover to attend Nottingham High School because of its academic program and football sports program. As a sophomore, Miguel was the starting quarterback for the high school. So on a Friday night game, Miguel was tackled to the ground by a player from the other team, and he was severely injured, and he was taken to the hospital where he was diagnosed with a spinal injury that left him paralyzed from waist down. To help with the injuries, Miguel participated in a rehab program for several months. After the rehab program was concluded, Miguel was ready to come back to school. His parents contacted the school counselor for a meeting, and during the meeting, Miguel's parents requested for him to come back to school as soon as possible. And at the end of the meeting, Miguel's parents informed the school counselor that Miguel would be using a wheelchair to get around. 2 weeks after the meeting, an assembly was held in school to welcome Miguel back to school. He was presented with a trophy to acknowledge his commitment to football team and the school. During first period, Miguel was called down to the school counselor's office. When he arrived, he was informed by the school counselor that his schedule has been changed and he was no longer enrolled in biology because the classroom was not wheelchair accessible. Miguel was then placed in a different science class that did not satisfy the college preparatory requirements. Miguel's mom, Mrs. Hernandez, requested a meeting with the school principal. At the meeting, Mrs. Hernandez wants to know why she was not contacted prior to the schedule change. And before the meeting ended, Mr. Hernandez, which is Miguel's father, arrived with an attorney to represent Miguel. So some legal and ethical issues in the case. Miguel was removed from the because the class was not wheelchair accessible. He was denied access to classroom, so his access to classroom was denied. Miguel was removed from the course without permission from his parents. The school counselor failed to contact Miguel's parents prior to making the schedule change. There was no communication with the school counselor and the principal regarding the schedule change. When the school counselor met Miguel's parents prior to him returning to school, the principal or another administrator should have been part of that reentry meeting. A Section 504 plan was never in place for Miguel. Access to FAPE was violated. ADA and Section 504 were violated. No one was harmed physically. However, the situation can cause emotional trauma for Miguel. Miguel is being discriminated against because he's in a wheelchair. Synthesize what happened. So after an unfortunate accident on the football field that left Miguel paralyzed from the waist down, he was denied access to a college prep biology course because the classroom was not wheelchair accessible, which violated Miguel's right to a free and appropriate education under Section 504 Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and American with Disability Act. Some of the facts: Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez, Miguel's parents, Miguel's Hernandez, which is the student, the people who are part of this are Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez, Miguel's parents, Miguel Hernandez, which is the student, Ms. Guzman, which is the school counselor, Howard Carey, which is the attorney that represents Miguel, Dr. Harvey, the superintendent, the high school principal, and the football team members. It takes place in Dover, a very supportive community. Over the years, the parents have devoted Friday evenings to cheering the high school football team and celebrating many victories. The high school, which is a central hub of activity in the city of Dover, serving about 3,200 students, and Dover Unified School District has 2 middle schools and 6 elementary schools. Programs. The high school has a great academic program, including college prep courses. The high school also has a great football sports program. Miguel was enrolled in a college prep biology class, which is a requirement for college admissions. Miguel was eligible for a 504 plan based on his disability. The 504 plan was never in place, which means that Miguel's rights as a student were violated. Review and prioritize the information. Could the conflict situation or decision be damaging to stakeholders or the community? The situation is extremely damaging to the community and stakeholders, because if the situation is not properly dealt with, it can result into a potential discriminatory lawsuit, which will be really bad for the district and the community. And the situation is also damaging to Miguel, because his dream as a football star was completely shattered. After his injury, he spent several months in rehab. And when he finally returned to school, he was also denied access to a college prep class that he needs for college admissions. So this can lead to several emotional trauma for Miguel. What individual and groups have an important stake in the outcome? Miguel has a lot of stake in this outcome because the situation is very damaging to his future. The school district has an important stake in this outcome as well. If the situation is not properly dealt with and the parents, can decide to sue, the reputation of the district will be destroyed. And the school district clearly violated Miguel's rights as a student, and they did not comply with laws that falls under 504, ADA, and FAPE. Have all relevant stakeholders been consulted? I don't believe that all of the stakeholders have been consulted in this case. The meeting that was held between the school counselor and the parents did not involve any administrators, the school nurse, or any members of the child study team. So during the meeting, the school counselor, Miguel's right as a student were presented to the parents. The superintendent was not consulted. The district's lawyer was not part of the meeting with the principal and the parents. Also, was there any communication between the rehab center and the high school? So that's a big question mark as well. So I don't think the high school and the rehab center were in contact. Can I learn more about the situation? I think there is a lot more information missing between Miguel's injury and him returning to school. I would need to know how Miguel was keeping up with his academics while he was in rehab. Who was providing him with the educational piece? Was there any communication between the high school and the rehab center? And why did Ms. Guzman decide to change Miguel's schedule? Did she consult anyone, perhaps her supervisor of counseling? Do I have enough information to make a decision? Yes, I feel that I have enough to make a decision based on all the facts that were provided. Identify options and possible consequences. So option 1 would be no action. So Miguel's schedule would remain the same and the principal decide not to accommodate Miguel's academic needs, which will result in a discriminatory lawsuit. Or option 2, reverse Miguel's schedule back to the original schedule, schedule a meeting with the 504 team to create an appropriate plan that will meet Miguel's academic needs and follow the laws under the 504 Rehabilitation Act and ADA, and this could result in possibly moving the biology class to a different location in the building that is wheelchair accessible. Or option 3, the high school principal and the superintendent can offer Miguel's parents an apology and offer the biology course remotely with a 504 plan in place. They will also ensure the parents that all of the appropriate laws will be followed appropriately. Evaluating options. So option 1, so if Miguel's schedule remained the same and the principal decide not to accommodate Miguel's academic needs, which will result in a lawsuit. So some of the pros, the school will be forced to comply with ADA laws and put a 504 plan in place, which could potentially provide Miguel the appropriate accommodations and modification that he needs, that he is entitled to. Some of the cons: equitable access to Miguel is denied. There will be a huge lawsuit filed against the district. Lawsuit will be very costly, and some people could lose their job for not following procedures and protocols, and the reputation of the principal, superintendent, and the school district could be damaged. Number 2, if they reverse Miguel's schedule back to where it was, some of the pros: the school is making the right choice for Miguel by complying with the ADA laws. Miguel is provided with equitable access. He will have access to educational opportunities. And if the principal apologizes to the parents, there is a chance that they will not move forward with the lawsuit, but it will also rebuild trust between the parents and the school principal. And some of the cons: the parents can still sue the school district, inconvenience for teachers by moving classroom, and it could take a long time also to move things around. The third option, the high school principal and the superintendent offer Miguel's parents an apology and offer the biology course remotely with a 504 plan in place. Some of the pros: remote option could start immediately. This will allow Miguel to have equitable access to educational opportunities as well as the resources and technology that he needs to succeed in bio. The high school would be ADA compliant, Miguel's rights are protected, and an apology will help to rebuild trust between the principal and the parents. Some of the cons: an apology could be more damaging to the credibility of the principal in the school district. Parents can still file a lawsuit for emotional distress. Lawsuit could be costly, and Miguel would lose in-person interaction with his classmates. Choosing the best option. I think option 2 is the best option, which is to reverse Miguel's schedule back to the original schedule. So that way they can ensure that Miguel will receive free and appropriate public education and equitable access. The school would start by apologizing to the family. It will ensure that the school is starting to rebuild trust with the family. The high school principal will need to work with the superintendent and the building maintenance to ensure that all buildings in the school district are complying with ADA laws. The school will need to put a 504 plan in place for Miguel by contacting the appropriate team members, and the school district will need to provide professional development for staff members to train and educate them on all of these laws. Implementing the plan: schedule a meeting with Miguel's family, start by apologizing, make sure to include the district lawyer in this meeting, make sure Miguel's parents understand what their rights are and what Miguel is entitled to, explain the 504 process to the family, contact the 504 team members and provide the team with the documents that they need so they can create a plan for Miguel. Make sure the biology class is in the least restrictive environment and consider where everything is located in the biology class. Make sure Miguel can access lab stations safely while he's in a wheelchair. Parents will need to be invited back for a 504 team meeting. Think about how we want to support Miguel emotionally. The school counselor would be at these meetings to discuss ways to support Miguel and what services she could provide Miguel through the counseling office. Working with stakeholders, superintendents, and maintenance to ensure construction is ADA compliant. Parents can still pursue the lawsuit, but so be prepared for that. So it's our job as administrators to ensure that all students are provided with the educational resource that they need to succeed. And if the plan doesn't work, make sure there's still an apology to the family. Make sure the biology course is included in Miguel's schedule for next year. And could this be a potential IEP referral in the future? We don't know, but something that, to think about moving forward. Some of the questions and reflections: what should have been done prior to Miguel's returning to school? We should think of barriers, to access, and hence plan and alternative routes in the hallways. Make sure the elevators, ramps, are working. Changing of the physical classroom, desk, tables, 504 plan should have been in place for Miguel. So all of those things could have been done prior. So all of that was, became an issue. The plan should have incorporated accommodation that minimized transition between classes, leaving class 5 minutes early, and then everything about the physical layout of the classroom as well. Who would you contact following the meeting with Miguel's parents and his attorney? I wouldn't have had a meeting with the attorney, because if they bring an attorney, I should have an attorney also. So that should have been rescheduled. Standard correlation, definitely this case meet the standards. Having access to educational resources and opportunities is very crucial for our students with special need. In Miguel's case, he was denied those access when the biology course was taken away from him. So as future building leaders, it's our duty to advocate for equitable access for, educational resource for all of our students. So this course really gave me some great perspective on special education laws and policies. Definitely relevant to my current role as a counselor. When I was reviewing the case, I really couldn't stop thinking about my role as a counselor. And Miguel's counselor was not knowledgeable in some of the special ed laws. So as a building principal, it's my responsibility to make sure that I provide the staff with the, resources and professional development that they need so they are knowledgeable in special ed laws. reflection, definitely a good eye opener for me as an educator. The situation is very real. It can happen everywhere in any school. So very important to be aware of some of this stuff. As a building leader, it's important to be aware of potential issues like this. So I was happy that I was able to come up with creative solutions to support educational success and well-being of each student. So let's work together to make sure that students have equitable access to technologies and